Welcome back to the Morning Kickoff Show. I'm your host, Matt Witt, and we have returned. The Morning Kickoff Show is back to its Monday and Thursday schedule every 9 o'clock Central Time in the morning, obviously. And today we're going to hear to talk about the Minnesota Vikings options at center. Who is going to be the next Minnesota Vikings starter? Whether Garrett Bradbury starts this season or not, he is not the long-term option for the Minnesota Vikings. And they've made that very clear over the last few years where he's been one of the worst in pass protection, and they have not approved his fifth-year option. Garrett Bradbury will play for the Vikings this upcoming season. There is no reason to cut him, as it wouldn't save us. It wouldn't make any sense financially. But is he going to be a starter? Is he starting year 4 with the Minnesota Vikings? And this is what we're going to talk about today, because I believe that he will not. And there is all signs are pointing to Garrett Bradbury not being a starter. Everybody who thought, oh, Mike Zimmer was the problem, he just needs his confidence with no head coach Kevin O'Connell. This has been proven not to be true, as he's been bullied by defensive linemen this entire preseason. We have videotape of him online getting forklifted by Dalvin Tomlinson. And I understand Dalvin Tomlinson is much bigger than you, but you are an 18th overall draft pick, and there's no excuse to be absolutely demolished by every opposing defensive lineman. I mean, just look at centers around the league who are smaller than him and have a better job. Jason Kelce, by the way. I believe Jason Kelce is smaller, but back onto talking about this. Who will be the Minnesota Vikings center to start this upcoming season? Because I don't believe it will be Garrett Bradbury. And it is clear the Vikings have done almost everything they can to bring competition for Garrett Bradbury, and he still looks this bad. Garrett Bradbury, as of right now, is listed as our starter and has been playing and getting snaps on the first team. But let's be honest, if somebody looks better, we have experienced offensive linemen to take his spot now. He should not be our starter this upcoming season. Taking a look at the additions the Vikings have made this offseason, they've added 5 interior offensive linemen to play for his role, potentially play for his role, and also the right guard position. We're not just talking about Bradbury, but we're looking at right guard here too, because that is another massive hole to fill for the Vikings. This is the biggest Bradbury is the weakest link on this team right now, in my opinion, have you seen anything promising from him? I guess he's done a great job blocking for Dalvin Cook. We can give him that, but that's not why we drafted him 18th overall. The Vikings have added 5 players. That's what we're looking at here. Jesse Davis being the veteran player who we added. Jesse Davis should not be starting at center. However, he could be positioned, possibly our starter at right guard. We'll have to wait and see. Ed Ingram, who we drafted in the second round, does have experience actually at the center position. His primary role in college was left guard, right guard, hopping around on both sides of the offensive line in LSU, but he is a rookie, second round draft pick. Probably not going to be a day 1 starter for us. Chris Reed, however, a player who is played here in Minnesota at Minnesota State Mankato, has played here in the past, and I do believe Chris Reed is possibly going to be the starter this upcoming season. All things are pointing to him possibly playing for that role. Austin Schlottmann, another veteran guard who is also now moved over to center, just like Chris Reed, in order to play for Bradbury. I mean, if Kevin O'Connell's moving both Chris Reed and Schlottmann to center, I think we're kind of hinting at maybe Bradbury is not the option for the Vikings in 2022. And then also the Josh kid, who we got as an undrafted free agent, might even make the active roster because we are that thin on the offensive line. But looking at these 5 players, 2 of them are rookies. So let's be honest, they're not going to start. Jesse Davis will likely be playing at right guard and right tackle because that's where he's played in the past. Chris Reed and Austin Schlottmann are 2 options to cover for Garrett Bradbury. Who are these players? Both veteran offensive linemen who have never played center, actually have very little experience playing center, I should say. Both are primarily guards who have moved over to center and now are getting snaps in the second team, playing for each other's, playing for the starting role pretty much at this point. Looking at the NFL preseason for the Minnesota Vikings, this has to be the biggest thing we have to watch for, because assuming that Bradbury does not actually play in the first game of the preseason, we see these 2 players play, and assuming that Bradbury gets only reps on the first team, we'll likely get to see Chris Reed and Austin Schlottmann play more snaps in preseason than we get to see Garrett Bradbury. And this is what we want to happen, because we do not want to watch another season of Bradbury getting forklifted by every opposing defensive lineman when he was an 18th overall draft pick. Let's face it, it wasn't Mike Zimmer's fault. It is just he is a bust. It happens. It happens. It was not a bad draft pick. I mean, it ends up being a bad draft pick in the future, obviously, looking back on it. At the time, it made a lot of sense. This just happens in the NFL, and you have to suck it up. Yes, you're paying him more money than you're paying a lot of your players who you could start over him. But at the end of the day, who is better? Chris Reed and Schlottmann are experienced veteran guards who are now playing center, and both of them maybe maybe he can take his role. Maybe they can. Maybe he just needs to fix his technique, as Kevin O'Connell would say. I do like my head coach having faith in Garrett Bradbury, at least a little bit of faith there, saying he just needs to fix his technique. However, with that being said, I think all things are pointing to Bradbury not being a starter this upcoming season. And when looking at Chris Reed's and Austin Schlottmann's tape, there is not a lot to be excited about. And I hate to be pessimistic here, but I have to say, I don't believe the Vikings, whoever starts at center, looking at our current roster, is going to be a great option. I don't. Garrett Bradbury has set the bar very low. These players don't have to work that hard to win the starting role right now. Chris Reed, I do really like the player. Doesn't have a lot of tape at center. We're going to have to wait and see. However, if we watch the preseason and we see both Chris Reed and Austin Schlottmann play poorly, and assuming Bradbury also does on top of that, it's not like there isn't options available in free agency. Looking at the available centers right now, we have J.C. Tretter and Matt Paradis, two of the best centers or better centers in the league, available right now in the free agent market, and the Vikings have yet to jump the gun on either of these two centers. Yet Garrett Bradbury continues to look this bad in the preseason. Yet your options are Chris Reed and Schlottmann, who have been bouncing around the league for a reason now. And you have the option of bringing in J.C. Tretter. You have the option of bringing in Matt Paradis, and you have yet to do so. The reason why is obviously because these are aging players who just suffer with injuries just about every year. But still, the Vikings, it is so clear we are not in a rebuilding phase right now. You brought in all these players for a reason. You brought in this new coaching staff for a reason. All things are pointing to pushing for a division title next year, which is more likely now than I thought it was going to be after the way this last season finished. Please, J.C. Tretter, Matt Paradis, if things don't go well, you have the options of bringing in these centers. Yes, they'll probably only end up playing 4 games this upcoming season because of injuries, but it's worth the shot. The upside is there. It is there. We need to fill this offensive line. We have a quarterback like Kirk Cousins who cannot get rid of the ball in 3 seconds, which is the time our offensive line is giving him. We have an inexperienced offensive line right now. Ezra Cleveland, hopefully he gets a year 3 jump. We hear of this year 3 jump going around, and I hope that can happen to Ezra Cleveland. Maybe we see Christian Darrisaw develop into a stud protecting his blind side. And we know Brian O'Neill's a Pro Bowl outstanding right tackle. We have no doubts about him. We're looking at the rest of the offensive line as ESPN and PFF has our offensive line ranked in the 20th. When you have an offense that ranks in the top 7 and your offensive line ranks in the 20th, that's a problem because that's holding you back right there. But looking at this is the biggest, weakest link on our team right now, in my opinion, is Garrett Bradbury. We're going to have to wait and see how this happens in the preseason, but I'm so pumped for this Vikings season as NFL football is back. Let me know what you think.